and a very warm welcome to the 12th episode of Grooming Daughters. Today we have with us Sanjam Sahi Gupta. Sanjam Sahi Gupta is the director of Sitara Shipping Ltd and Astral Freight Forwards Private Limited. She heads the NVOCC vertical, which specializes in handling of over-dimensional cargo. She is a governing council member of the Logistics Skill Council India. She is also a founder member of Women's International Shipping and Trading Association and board member of WISTA International. She is also a member of Executive Board of Directors in the World Maritime University based in Malmo, Sweden. In 2014, the International Women's Leadership Forum awarded her Leading Women in Shipping Business and also awarded in 2014 by SPJIMR Business School as Outstanding Family Business. In May 2018, she was the recipient of Sandvik Gender Award for her outstanding contribution and commitment to gender equality. As a part of her award, she conducted India's first survey for gathering data on women in maritime. Glenn Pharmaceuticals awarded her Woman of the Year 2019 in March 2019. In June 2019, she was invited as a part of high-level panel initiative by the Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg for a sustainable ocean economy. She has been invited by United Nations body in maritime, the International Maritime Organization, to speak at various panels and conferences. In February 2020, she was named as one of the top 100 women in shipping by All About Shipping UK. To further her commitment to diversity in the maritime and logistics industry, she has launched Maritime CEO to provide solutions to the industry. Welcome, Sanjam. It's a pleasure to have you us today with. We also have Hiten Muchala sir here with us today. He's been doing business from last 28 years and he's also a very passionate teacher. He teaches strategy to our GFMB students under SPJIMR School of Global Management. Hiten sir, good evening and welcome. Over to you.
Thank you, Sabina. And all the viewers, welcome once again today. Indeed, an impressive introduction to this young lady, Sanjam Sahi Gupta. And it's not an end, it's just the beginning. But we would like to know what has made her achieve all this at such a young age. It's still good to go, long time to go, right? And so, Sanjam, welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
We would like to hear from you, actually, what is your family business? Though it was explicitly explained through the introduction, but it's always good to hear from you.
Thank you so much. My father, Captain Sahi, is a mariner. He left sea very young to set up his own shipping business. So from the late 70s, we've been involved in different aspects of the shipping business. We've done it all, I think, from ship owning, ship management, owning barges. Currently, we are operating as an NVOCC. We own and operate our own marine containers, which we ply between India and the subcontinent and the Gulf region. We specialize in over-dimensional cargo.
Okay. And so why did you choose to join your family business and not choose to work elsewhere outside?
I always felt very passionate about the industry because growing up, dinner table conversations were all about talking about ships and boats and the business. And as a very young girl, I don't know, maybe I was 5 or 6 years old, I actually announced at the dinner table that when I'm going to grow up, I'm going to work with my daddy. And I think my parents laughed at me at that time, but it actually was my childhood dream to grow up and work in this industry. It's always fascinated with me, and I think I've inherited my love for the industry for my father. There was just one time I had second thoughts when I was finishing my MBA. I remember thinking that I should get into the field of education and set up my own chain of play schools. But at that time also, there were two reasons why I decided to go ahead with my family business. One was at that time the business needed me. And two, I think I was just too chicken to kind of venture on my own. So I'll admit that.
Okay. So you said that it had been your childhood dream. Who made this dream? I mean, who made you dream this? I mean, what was your father's influence? You said discussions, conversations on the dining table. Was that it? Or you would like to explain something more?
I think just hearing even about him sailing before he set up the business, he would talk about his time at sea, and it was all very fascinating to me. I cannot explain it, but just the entire thing about seeing him, travel and get that global perspective, I was very fascinated. So it made me want to kind of get into this industry, and yes, and here I am today.
Okay, so you mentioned that you were in a double mind, whether to get into start with your play school or get into the father's business, and then you mentioned that there was some problem and that made you join your father's business. Can you elaborate? How was that early start? What was this problem all about, and what did you learn from that problem?
All right. So most people like to join the business at the time when it's booming, and the same with me. Unfortunately, at the time where I joined the business, two things happened simultaneously. First thing, the market that was booming crashed, and shipping is a cyclical industry. So we went through one of the worst decline phases. The second thing was that we had an NRI group invested in the company, and they wanted to take over. So matters were in court, they were under litigation. So everything happened at the same time. I used to really feel very upset about it. It was very, very challenging. My parents were very busy trying to sort out the legal issues. So my early days were actually going to the court to listen to the hearings, to go to the lawyer. And I learned so much. It was a very difficult situation. At that time, I didn't want to be in it. But today I can very confidently say, I've been through that situation. So today nothing really phases me. It takes a lot to kind of get to me. I think I can handle so much more now because I've been through that phase. And I've learned to operate with practically limited finance. So you learn to operate, there's a word that Indians say with jugaad. You have to think out of the box. When you have limited room to maneuver and funds are tied up because, the court has ordered, you cannot use the funds of the business even though they are there. So you learn to innovate, improvise, and get each customer back. Because of the litigation, customers had, got afraid because they don't want to deal with a company that's going through internal issues. So me and my sister, I would not take the credit for that, but me and my sister, we work fabulously as a team. We're just two daughters. I remember going to one client, each client, and getting them back and giving them the faith. And I think that not only while doing that, we ourselves empowered ourselves. So for us, I think that was a turning point.
So if I was to ask you to reflect back and think, were learnings far more broader and wider because you joined a family business, or would they have been a little different had you joined somebody outside? You would have worked for somebody outside.
I know the ideal situation most people say is to work outside and gain that expertise or that experience in a company before joining the business. Fortunately, unfortunately, I didn't have that option at that time. Things were pressing back home, so I did not get that exposure outside. I do think sometimes what it would be like, but I think I've done okay for myself. And I think I've kind of got that exposure in different ways. So yes, I think if given the opportunity, I would have liked to work outside, but I don't think that has deterred me or made me any less capable. So I think I've been okay.
Wonderful. So having said that, what changes have you and your sister been able to bring into your business?
So at that time, we were focusing on general cargo and perishable cargo, the cargo that moves in refrigerated containers. We decided to change the focus and get into the over-dimensional cargo market. So we actually now, modernized our fleet. We brought in more open top and flat track containers and focused on the OOG handling of cargo, which I think was a good idea. And we now specialize in project cargo, whether it's moving in containers or bulk. I think despite the fact that we both were not technical, like neither of us have sailed, neither of us are captains or mariners, I think it's something that we kind of imbibed and we learned along the way. So I think we made a great team. She has certain skill sets, I have the others. And of course, my father still is the captain of the ship. He guides us whenever we need his expertise. My mom is also involved in the family business. She looks after the finance. So it's very much a family business in true sense.
So how did you both get this idea to get into this particular niche market? That's question, and that's something that I would like to ask. And when you approached your father that we need to change the way we do our business, what had been his response, and how did he support you?
So the first thing, I think the initiative came more from my sister. I must give her the credits to me. She kind of saw that there was a gap in the market at that time. And at that time, we would get a lot of demand from customers and we were not actually able to cater to that demand. So she saw a gap and she said, no, we must fulfill it. So it was actually her initiative. And, we both worked on it and we went to our father and we presented him the idea. And it was pretty drastic, actually. At that time, she was not happy with the entire marketing team. So I remember we had 3 key people in the marketing team and she went up to him and said, you know what, they have to go. They're just not open-minded and they're just not doing their work properly. And you let me do it. And she has had no formal MBA experience, but I think she has a lot of it. It comes naturally to her. And to any other father, I think, who would have said that, what are you talking about? You're just like fresh out of studies and you have no experience and you want me to just hand it over to you. But my dad is, he's a very different person. He's a born entrepreneur and he's very open-minded. Even today, he's the first person who's open to change, which is kind of very, difficult to find. So he said, fine, go ahead. You want to do it, do it. And that was his philosophy. He never stopped us from doing anything. But yes, there were times we took his advice and, in the end, we lived to regret it because we didn't follow his advice a couple of times. And then in the end, we realized in hindsight that had we followed his advice, things would have been better. But he never said, I told you so. He wanted us to learn from our mistakes. And there was one situation I want to highlight. So my sister had this one major issue with one of her shipments in the first year when she was working, and she incurred a huge loss at that time. And I think that was in the year maybe 2000. It was a lakh of rupees or something. Of course, at that time, it seemed big to somebody who's just joined the business. And she went up to my father and said, you know what, I can't do this, because of me, the company suffered a loss and I made a bad error in the judgment. And I don't think I have the stomach for this. And he was so encouraging, rather than, telling her, I told you so, you should have listened to me. He said, don't worry, money comes and goes. This is the experience you learn from it. And within the next year, you will double or triple that amount. And believe me, in the next year, she made her first million. So, and that also in one project, in one over-dimensional key project that we were handling. And she said that had that day he not given her the words of encouragement, she would have never had the courage to go back and do what she was doing. So in that way, I think my father has been great. He's been a great captain so far, like kind of leading, but letting others go ahead and do their own thing.
Lovely. Letting his daughters learn from their mistakes. That's a fair point. But your father has 2 daughters, right? And the traditional mindset in a business is that, beta nahi hai, beta hai to sambhalega aage, betiyan kya karegi? Anything like that, any traditional mindset he faced during all these years, and how has he responded to them? How has he coped up with it?
I come from a very modern family. But of course, we live in society. And those are very common questions that me and my sister were also asked. What, only 2 sisters, no brother? So the same way my father also faced those questions. No, poor man, bichara, sirf 2 betiyan hai. Don't worry, Sai Saab. Shayad, betiyon ki shaadi ho jayegi, to jamai aayega, business sambhal lega. And my dad was like, what are you saying? No way. My 2 daughters are equivalent to 11 sons. And he still proudly goes by that philosophy. So 100% confidence by my dad there. He never felt that way. He never raised us believing that, there was anything that we couldn't do. even if I would have had a brother, like a lot of people speculate and said, why your father gave you so much freedom? Because you don't have a brother. But I beg to differ. I think even if I had a brother, my father would have brought us up equally, my parents, my father and my mother both, because they really don't believe in differences. And they brought us up to believe that we can do anything we want out to do.
So as a woman, when you stepped into the business, you said, there was trouble when you entered your family business. And then later on, you and your sister together identified niche markets. And during this entire journey, as a woman in the business, did you face any challenges, any problems?
We did. The first problem we faced was within the company. There were a lot of old managers. So they were very resistant to the idea of the two daughters coming in. Had we been sons, it would have been expected that chalo beta join karega, that's his rightful place. I was studying during undergraduation also. I used to go in a couple of hours to the office to do basic menial work like entering the bills and things. But even in doing that work, it made me understand who are our vendors, how much we were paying whom, who are our suppliers. So those small things we did, even when we worked fine, we were doing the general dog's body work. Everybody was giving us work. We were sending emails for people. We were typing out manifests, preparing bill of lading. Because my father said that you have to learn the work right from the bottom. If you don't know the work, then you can't take up work from people. But despite us, there was this one particular manager who just refused to relent despite us working very hard. The others still mellowed, they saw that no, these girls are serious. They are here to stay, and they accepted us. But it was really strange that in your own office, you're sitting and you ask for a file and people don't cooperate with you. So we had to undergo that within the company. And of course, outside the company, when we would go to meetings with clients and association gatherings, sometimes we would be the only women there. And I remember we went to a client's office for a meeting and they were not starting the meeting. So we asked them, why are you waiting? They said, no, we're waiting for your boss to come to start the meeting. And we said, no, the meeting is with us. So there were just funny incidents like that I remember that come to mind. And of course, at that time, I think I was young and hot-headed and it made me very angry. But today I can look back and laugh over these incidents.
Any incidents on the sales marketing side, on the customer side, where you had some issues and the customer would refuse to speak with you, or he would want to speak to your father?
Yes, so there was the people would ask my sister and me, but what if something goes wrong? Who's the responsible person? Who can we call in the middle of the night? So it would be very strange. And there was this one time a customer came in to negotiate a waiver for a demurrage for a shipment. And he refused. He said, no, I want to talk to a responsible person. That means he wanted to talk to a man. So we went to my father and said, he wants to talk to a man. So please do the needful. And in the end, I think he walked away with a lesser discount than what we would have offered him. But then we understood that certain people are not satisfied until they feel that there's a man in the forefront. Despite the fact that we were in the background, everything was done by us, but they were still not satisfied. But I guess it was their loss.
Absolutely. Well said. You said your mother has also been working, right? It's been a true family business. And that's quite interesting and inspiring. What has been the role of your mother in shaping your career and your sister's career?
So my mother also by background, she doesn't have a management degree. She does not have an accounting background, but surprisingly, she's heading the finance and the business. The main need came that when the business was expanding, you needed a family member to look after the finance function. And my mother, like us, actually joined, she learned on the job and she would actually sit down with the accountants, learn basic concepts of accounting. And then, of course, it took her many years to take over the finance function. She, of course, gave us more time when we came into the business. My father was very busy. So she did kind of act as our mentor. She's a very media shy and low-key person. So she was very happy to accept stereotypical behavior. I remember she told us about this one incident where she was in the office and a client was sitting with my father. And when she went in to speak to my father, he said, "अरे भाभी जी डब्बा लेके आई हैं, हाँ नहीं तो आप खाना कैसे खाएंगे?" So that was so typical that the client could not fathom what would the lady of the house be doing in the office. He could accept only that much, that she was there to feed my father. But she would just smile and she would not say anything because that's the kind of person she is. But those are the kind of, stereotypical, norms of that people expected, those roles that people expected her to fulfill. It didn't matter how hard she worked or whatever she did, and she didn't like the limelight, but people kept thinking that she was in that role, she was just Bhabhi ji. So easy to accept.
Right, right. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And did you face any resistance from your extended family, like your uncles, aunts, or very nearby relatives, with you both working together, joining your father's business?
So my father was initially working with his brothers, and he separated many years back, before we joined. But I have certain cousins who are my age, and we all joined the business around the same time. So I would find it a little strange that one of my aunts, whose son is joined the business at the same time, every time we would meet, she would ask me, "So you go to office? You go to office every day?" And I would find it very strange why she's asking me that question and why that question was not posed to her son. And then I realized that she thought that, oh, these are just girls. She'll stop going to office. Abhi thode din naya shauk hai, they'll stop going. So that was the typical attitude, that, oh, they'll stop. And then even when I got married, अच्छा तो शादी के बाद तो काम नहीं करोगे ना? So, and I was like, why? If I was a boy, or would anybody have even asked me that question? So these patriarchal norms still exist. Unfortunately, a lot has not changed. And when I got married, it was a very unique situation because I was the first daughter-in-law in the family to work. So I got married. I had a love marriage. So my college sweetheart and me, and he comes from a business family. And there were no women who had ever worked. And my husband chose not to join his family business, but work for a corporate. So he's a finance professional. So it was a very unique situation where people were like amazed. How is this going to work? My father-in-law has his business, my husband going to work to another office, and me working with my father, which was kind of unheard of in circles. But a lot of credit here, I would say, went to my father-in-law, who accepted it and said that, no, there's nothing wrong with it. So what if she's going to work with her father and she's going to work with our son? She should not be expected to go to the kitchen and to, prepare the dabba or to cook. She will sit down at the breakfast table and she will have, the same privileges as our son, because if he's going to go in and put a hard day's work, so is she. So they both are going to be sitting together, leaving for the office at the same time. So yes, I would say a lot of gratitude to him to kind of set the pace there.
Yeah, so interesting. And also, I think, so you already touched upon one big turnaround in a woman's life, which is marriage, where, she goes to another family and lives with them. Another one is having a child, and so how did you manage? You already have a son. And how did you manage both, growing up your son, looking after him, and at the same time achieving what you've done today?
So they say it takes an entire village to raise a child, and it's kind of true because so I'm a very focused person. My sister, when she saw the movie Key and Car, with Kareena Kapoor, and she's a workaholic, she came back and said, "Oh God, Sanjam, that's exactly you. You love working. You don't like to relax, work all the time." So anybody who knows me knows that I'm a very driven person. I really like my work. I mean, I like to be busy, always, stay focused. So when I had a baby, of course, I embraced motherhood, and it was a wonderful experience. But I wanted to get back to work. And then the question was, how am I going to get back to work? Because the baby needed me. I needed to be around my baby as well. So my father did something very marvelous. He bought the next door office and we converted it into a huge playroom with the separate washroom facilities for my son. And what was my routine then is I would leave my home, drop off my son to my mom's. She would kind of look after him for a couple of hours. She would take him to the park, bathe him, get him ready, everything, and then get him to the office around lunchtime. So then the second half of the day, he would never be away from me for more than 3-4 hours. Of course, this was later when he was a little older. When he was a baby, we had to literally have his cot in my room. And, so he would not be away from me for more than an hour. But I just started having a baby who came to the office with me. So it was something new that my customers knew when they called me in the office. First couple of times they called me and they said, "Is there a baby crying in the background?" I'm like, "Yes, that's my baby. He's 6 months old. I can't leave him at home. He's going to be attending the office with me." So in the industry, people knew Sanjam has a baby who comes with her to work. And I kind of like the sound of it because women are going to have families. And what are they expected to do? What about women who don't have a choice? Why not let the baby come to work with the mom? I mean, how amazing is that? That's a normal, right? Why should it be any different? My son literally grew up at the office. Of course, he was at my mom's house for a few hours every day and she would look after him. But I must say that in the first few years of his life, literally he interacted with everybody in my office. He had a separate room and we would actually laugh and say he was going to learn A for anchor, B for ballast, and C for charter party, because he would be a nautical baby, because my husband coincidentally is also working in the shipping sector. So it's a family of everybody working in the maritime industry.
Amazing, amazing. Probably your son is another Sanjam in the making, it seems like. But I love the way you said that, it was a wonderful experience to have your first child. And at the same time, you also said that, okay, fine, I also need to do work. I need to work. And how do I balance it? It's quite interesting because some women today who are highly career oriented, just like you, would actually find it burdensome, having a child. But that's the role of a woman is, right? And I just love the way how nicely you balanced everything out and things work for you. But Sanjam, tell me, amongst all this, how supportive has been your husband? What has been his role in what you've been doing today?
Absolutely. So he's been my partner and backed me all the way. I think family really levels the playing field. Had it not been with the support of my parents, my sibling, my sister, of course, and my husband. The husband plays a very key role because it's him who really encouraged me. So when my son turned 5 was the first time I traveled. And I still remember I was going to Montreal and obviously it's so far away. So I was going for like 6 or 7 days. I just kept my trip really short to the minimum. And I was having guilt pangs in leaving him. And we women tend to have that, we tend to feel guilty all the time that we're not, there for our kids. But my husband was so cool about it. He said, "No, go, you live your life. 1 week is not going to matter, later in his life. And he's going to appreciate what his mom is doing and what she's achieving." So yeah, a lot of brownie points to my husband who pushed me to achieve that. And of late, I think we've fallen into such a great way of working because the first few years of my son's life, my husband had a crazy travel schedule and I was here. And then recently, when his work kind of changed a little bit where he doesn't have to travel so much, it so happened that my travel schedule was crazy. I'm traveling practically every month. This was before COVID. And we was just perfect. We've kind of balanced it out. He's always here. We try to make sure both of us are not traveling at the same time. Of course, my son's 13 now, so it's much easy. But without the support of my husband, I don't think this would have happened. And unlike a lot of typical Indian men, he does not, treat our relationship like a husband-wife subservient relationship where the wife is supposed to serve the husband or we're equals. So I don't know whether it's to do with the fact that we were college sweethearts, we grew up together, but we are equals in every sense. And I think that's the way it should be between, a husband and a wife, between any sort of partnership.
But you mentioned that your husband is working outside for other company, and you actually handle your father's business. You've joined your father's business, and I'm quite sure that there would be some societal talks going around. How does your husband accept this? How does your husband respond to this?
So I think the first thing is that he's an achiever in his own right, like he's extremely successful. So I think and he's also kind of very self-assured. So nothing really gets to him. I think he's very proud of the fact that I'm his wife, and he's proud of the fact that he's known as Sanjam's husband. So for a lot of events, we get invitation that says Mr. and Mrs. Sanjam Gupta. And he comes there as my spouse because that's the way it is, right? I accompany him for his events and he comes to me with mine. And he very proudly says that I'm Sanjam's husband. Oh yes, I'm Sanjam's husband. So there are times where he's identified as my husband and he's really happy. He feels proud about it. So I think that's the way it should be, right? The husband and wife, we both support each other in our success. And I'm happy to be known and proud to be known as his wife. And at the same time, he's happy and proud to be known as my husband. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, I think this particular statement speaks a lot about your husband, where he says, "I'm proud to be known as Sanjam's husband." I think that's a big statement. So, what is Sanjam today? What does she aspire to be tomorrow?
My biggest fear when I started working is that I would leave the industry without having made a mark. I really felt that I should be able to make a difference. I've seen my father doing a lot for the industry. So of course, he does it very quietly without publicizing it. My biggest fear was that I would not be able to make my mark. I think today, apart from being successful in business, I feel very privileged that I've been able to be part of a change, to play the role of a change maker and actually drive change within the maritime industry when it comes to gender. I think if the next generation of women who enter this industry find it a bit more welcoming, if they find it easier, I really believe I would have achieved what I set out to be. My goal is that when people think of leaders within the maritime industry, they should think of both genders, men and women both. That is my dream, to have a gender neutral maritime industry, to have a place where men and women thrive. And believe me, I feel India as a nation, we can be a maritime superpower. All we have to do is let women participate. That's all.
So just an extension to that question and to your response is, this particular question I love asking most of the participants in all the episodes is, what according to you are those finest qualities that a woman can bring into the business?
So as women, we're mothers, right? We have the nurturing, the protecting instinct. I really believe that goes a long way because we're like the tiger mother. We protect our kids. So the same way we protect the business, I think we're also more ethical and we follow rules a lot more. So I think in that way, it's safer to have more women as leaders. But yes, I think our nurturing instinct and the ability to multitask, I really think that goes a long way.
Very, very well said. Very well said. I think nurturing and I think these are some finest qualities that a woman can bring in. And it's so interesting and inspiring to see a husband who is so happy to be recognized that, I'm fine to be recognized by my wife's name. There's no harm, right? Times are changing. Mindsets are changing. Are we willing to change our mindsets? And that's precisely what we do at Asian Institute of Family Managed Business. We are trying to bring in this change. We are trying to be a change agent to this. And those of you who would like to contribute to this cause, who would like to get into more discussions with us, who would like to participate with us, please contact Ms. Sujata Roy. She can be reached on 98339 67687. I will repeat, Ms. Sujata Roy. She can be reached on 98339 67687. I hope you all have enjoyed today's session, and I can assure you that we'll have another session same time next week. Stay tuned on Grooming Daughters on Facebook Live page. And Sanjam, thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.